Good evening. So last night we finished Mr Balls. So tonight we're moving on because we're reading through David Walliams' The World's Worst Teachers. And tonight we've moved on to Mr and Mrs Lovey and the Sea of Tears. So we've got Mr and Mrs Lovey. Oh, love. Sweet love. And they're at St Valentine's School, English and History. So they're the teachers. Mr and Mrs Lovey in the Sea of Tears. Mr Lovey had taught English at St Valentine's School for as long as anyone could remember. He dressed as if all his clothes had been knitted by his elderly mother, which they were. The man was never seen without his knitted tie, cardigan and tweed suit. One day a new history teacher joined the school. Her name was Miss Davi. She dressed as if she made her clothes out of old curtains, which she did. The lady favoured floral frocks that went all the way up to her neck and all the way down to her ankles. The pair were made for each other. On her very first day, Miss Davi was put on break time duty. Mr Lovey was too. As all the boys and girls of St Valentine's School played it, these two lovebirds caught their first glimpse of each other. To begin, their shyness prevented them from doing anything more than glancing at each other briefly, then looking away. However, soon the looks became longer and longer as they gazed into each other's eyes. Look. Oh. Red and brown leaves fell from the trees around them. Patter. A gust of wind swirled their hair into the air. Swirl. The sound of a dozen violins soared from the music room. Da-dee-da. I can hear them. The famous balcony scene from the most romantic play ever written, Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, was being rehearsed in the concert hall. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east and Juliet is the sun. It's nearly as romantic as Bert and Sheila's love story in the classic novel Ratburger. In no time, their hearts were full to bursting. Neither could resist each other a moment longer. Mr Lovey and Miss Davi opened their arms and began rushing towards each other. Look. They scampered across the playground like gazelles, knocking small children out of their way. Oof, ah, poof, ah. Eventually, the pair embraced. Wallop. They held on to each other tightly. It was as if they'd been searching the world for all eternity, and now they'd both finally found their soulmate. Such was their joy that they both burst into floods of tears. Boo! Yuck. Revolting, isn't it? What could be more vomit-inducing than a teacher in the throes of love? The answer is simple. 2 teachers in the throes of love. Double puke. Their first meeting was only the beginning. Soon Mr Lovey was always hovering outside the history classroom to blow a kiss to Miss Davi. Mwah! 2 of them. Meanwhile, Miss Davi was always popping into the English classroom to drop off a cup of tea and a slice of her homemade Victoria sponge cake to Mr Lovey. Clink. One day he ended up eating 27 slices and had to be taken to the sick room. In no time, the pair of love-struck teachers were calling out messages of love to each other down the school corridors. I miss you already, my beautiful rainbow, he would say, even though she'd only been gone for 5 minutes. Until break time, my handsome prince of love, she would call back. Up, Chuck. All the kids at St Valentine's found the pair puke-tastic. Puketastic is a word. Just look it up in your Williams dictionary. You might be quietly sitting in the library when you'd be caught in the crossfire of one of Miss Lovey Dove's slobbery air kisses aimed at Mr. Lovey Splat. Or you might be tucking into your lunch when you'd be met with the horrifying sight of Mr. Lovey's face squashed up against the window of the dining hall, gazing lovingly at Miss Dovey. Squelch. See his face? Your lunch would end up being sprayed all over the window. Blech, splatter! So far, so bad. However, things took a turn for the worse. Much worser. A real word that you will find in the world's finest dictionary, the Williams Dictionary. The Williams Dictionary includes it, so it must be real. It is never wrong. The teacher's romance blossomed and bloomed and even blossomed. And one day, in front of the entire school, Mr. Lovey got down on one knee. "Do you need a hand up?" asked Miss Dovey. "Not just yet," he replied. "Ever since I first set eyes on you in the playground." There was still a lot of chattering from the kids in the dining hall. "Please, can I have quiet? I can still hear talking." "Thank you." The school fell silent. "Ever since I did that bit. Miss Dovey, whenever I see you, my heart explodes with joyousness. Please, could you make me the happiest, wappiest man in the world by becoming my wife? Miss Dovey, will you marry me?" From his pocket, he produced a ring that his mother had knitted and presented it to Miss Dovey. The history teacher burst into floods of tears. "Is that a yes?" inquired the English teacher. Miss Dovey couldn't speak, so she just nodded her head and whimpered. Then Mr. Lovey burst into tears as well. He was still down on one knee and beginning to look uncomfortable. "Ouch, but actually, please, could you help me up now? My knee's gone numb." The wedding day was set, and the entire school was made to come. The church, which was beside a river, was only a stone's throw from the school, so there was absolutely no excuse. All the girls were forced to wear bridesmaid dresses made out of curtains. "Ha ha ha ha," laughed the boys. See them all in their curtains. Although they shouldn't have, as they were forced to wear pink pageboy outfits knitted by Mr. Lovey's mother. Laughed the girls. Mr. Lovey wore a three-piece powder blue suit, knitted, of course, by his mother. She bawled throughout the entire service. Boo-hoo-hoo. And tomorrow, we're going to find out more about the service, because that's part one. So we're going to find out more about Mr. Lovey and Mr. Davi tomorrow. So sleep well, and I'll see you tomorrow. Night, night.